went there on June 24th of, June 22nd of 2024. And all during the 10 days that we were there, we were lucky to get about 5 or 6 hours of sleep because we were going from one province to another throughout Vietnam. We didn't cover all of Vietnam, but every bit of 5 different provinces and 10 different district offices within those 5. And what we were doing was explaining how we came to find where we feel the grave is located. And what you don't hear in the film basically is the research that's done. What we do is we look for satellite images, we look for maps, photos from helicopters of areas where we're looking for the grave. Those are like gold to us. The action reports the military guys are familiar with, there's the journals. We'll read both of them, just make sure that they say the same thing, if nothing else. But we take the grid coordinates of the path of the battle, and that's where we start identifying where the probability of where a grave could be. That's one of the ways of doing that. When we come down to it, now we go through the action report and we drill down to the unit that had to actually do the cleanup. And that's basically find the bodies and bury them, okay? For those who don't know, it's part of the Geneva Convention, you should be doing it. But in any event, what we would do then is drill down through the action report to find out who did the actual cleanup. Then it's a matter of writing to today's unit, 199th, 2nd Brigade, whatever it may be, drill down and hopefully find a historian that's working as the historian for the 199th. And find that individual and have him help us drill down to the individual soldiers, which unit, which company was doing this. And it's the company, the person I'm about to talk to is a person that just finished the battle 2 hours before at the most, and now he's being asked to go out and do the cleanup. This is the guy I'm contacting. What I do with him, I keep it very simple. It's not an interrogation. What it is, it's more like an interview. And what I do is, I say basically these are primarily of all the locations. They're either landing zones or fire support bases. The guys in the military know exactly what they are and what the difference is. But they're all basically designed the same way as far as the circle is concerned. Just one's bigger than the other. The larger one has the artillery, fire support base. What he'll do is he'll walk out the base and say, all right, which direction are you walking out the base? So I'm walking out on the right side. Now, what he has in front of him is anything that we have to help guide him in where he's going to be walking. Could be an overhead, could be a satellite image, something similar to what you see here. Could be a helicopter shot from above, maybe 100 feet up, which works out perfect if they get the whole base in the picture. That's an excellent tool for us to give to that soldier. So now he recalls exactly what that place looked like. In his mind, this is 50, 60 years later that we're asking these questions. Which way did you walk out on the base? The next question is, how far from the berm were you? The berm is the pile of dirt that they push up. They insert the bunkers in there about every 25 yards. We use between myself or who's ever actually doing the interview, myself or Rich Magner maybe. We'll ask them, okay, you're fine, you're 50 yards out, and you're at the 1 o'clock position now. So in other words, now he walked out at 3 o'clock, so now we know for sure he's walking counterclockwise. Once he gets to the furthest point of where he's going in his path, he's giving us different points, different distances. I'm drawing lines back to the base. Periodically, I'll ask him, since he's walking and the base is on his left side, I'll ask him, what do you see directly out from your left shoulder? What do you see on the base? What I do, I continue that line right out to that building, whatever it may be. It may be a tent, maybe the headquarters building, maybe dispensary, chow hall, who knows what it is. He's telling me what it is. If it's a tower, like a gun tower, then we'll be able to find footings for that tower later on and be able to really nail where the grave is based on where we feel it is. We've already had that experience in Benoit, so we know that works. At least we had good engineering going into the project. But then what we're doing, like I said, I'm not drilling him. Finally, he reaches the farthest point out. That's where the grave is. That's not me saying that. That's the assumption at this point. That's the furthest point he went. He doesn't have any need to go any further. and he's walking around picking up others and then taking them back from another direction. But again, it all focused back to where the grave could be, based on his estimate of distance. And from the berm, like I said. From there, we put everything together as far as pictures of partially what you see here of the satellite image. Excuse me, that's zoomed in pretty close. But that's a satellite photo from probably a U2 or an F4 recon. What we'll do is we'll take pictures that we can find and piece them together and overlay them and be able to, the finished product is what it looks like in 1968 on the battlefield, and what it looks like now, 2025. So now we match up roads, telephone poles, anything we can find, or roads, streams, and make sure it looks exactly the same. That's what the veteran gets. What the provincial office gets, and so does the district office for that province. They all get the same thing, so they're all being told the same thing by every one of us. Bottom line is we tell them the grave is here. It's best. You start with grave number 1 through 5, work from the top down. If you work from the bottom, most likely you're going to not find the grave. So why get discouraged? The priority is number 1 through 5. And so there's 20 graves that we've given them. 25 graves. And I would estimate that total is probably close to, I'll say close to 1,000 in all those 20 graves total. Prior to all this, we would get stuff like from 16th Infantry. 16th Infantry gave me 2 Excel files that basically show every single operation they were on during their 1-year tour for the 2 regiments on 2 different Excel sheets. The only thing I had to do with those was convert military coordinate to northeast coordinate. There's a total between the 2 regiments, 2,500 remains that they basically buried somewhere. Other than it's the closest point is that grid coordinate. That's what we use. If it's anything different than that, we're hoping the veteran tells us, because he's looking at the same thing we are. That's how we get to where we are, and that's how we communicate basically to Vietnam. Now the initial path is it's still in place today. What we do is we'll go all through that motion of reading and research. Then we'll present everything directly through the 2 engineers that we have from Vietnam, 2 Vietnamese civilians. They're too young to have fought in the war. One of them, his name is, we've been mispronouncing his name for probably 5 years. His last name is spelled Thang. So you would actually think about saying that his name is Thang. Well, that's not how it's pronounced in Vietnamese. It's pronounced thong, like a sandal, a thong. Okay, so we got all that corrected after about 5 years. So now we got him named right. But he is the chief person, I'll call, in Vietnam that we give this stuff to. And he finalizes everything, and he gives us back the picture of what we were looking for. That's now what goes back to him as a finished product, and now eventually goes either by us by hand, or else he delivers it to the provincial office. To the provincial office supervision, the senior people, not just the clerk in the office or anything like that. These are senior people we're talking about. It's not unusual. Just in last August, I requested of the Institute of Peace. I said, I have an idea because we're running out of veterans. They're getting too old to remember all this stuff, and they're passing. I've had 4 veterans who have helped us over the last 2 years die. That's how close it is. If I didn't have their information, I wouldn't know where the grave is today. So I said to him, the next step is I need to involve the Catholic Church. Has anyone been in battle at Long Binh? Okay. During the Tet Offensive, they hit us with 2,500, all predominantly from the east side. There were 150 killed on the base. We didn't know where the others were. That's what's mentioned, so to speak, in the video. I know they're out there. We eventually found 5 of the 6 graves. If all 6 were excavated tomorrow, including the one we can't find yet, there's 1,600 in those graves. It's a hell of a loss. What convinced me, after the first grave, this is where it gets a little sentimental. What convinced me to continue with this process after the first grave was that they provided a large ceremony for the 150 that were supposed to be there. They found 80, and they didn't find the other 70 because Vietnam had no clue that there was a grave there. They put an underground pipe in there and basically blew out the whole north end of the grave. So there's nothing to be found there. So, but of the 80, they identified 12 based on the artistic work that they would keep, wrapped in plastic and signed with their name on it, or letters from home wrapped in plastic. So they were able to identify 12. So of the 80 people that are being buried and were reburied that you may have seen where they're throwing flowers into, that's a temporary setup. It's a concrete grave. Okay? Temporary grave is what that is. And they cover that. And they're tagged. And they wait for the families to come up with a burial location where they live, and then the government will move it up free of charge. They'll take the casket out, they know where it is, they'll take it out, put it into a car or a vehicle of some sort, and take it up to whatever province that people live in today. And that's how they eventually get something close to where they live, where they can pay their respects periodically, just like you or I would do at a cemetery where we live for a lost loved one. And so from that, the graves, like I said, 1,600, or possibly they could excavate. Now, some of those are under homes. When we're doing this, we don't care if they're under homes or not. We're telling Vietnam, this is where the grave is. And you'd be surprised how many different ways we find out information on the fly. It's unrealistic. The largest grave to date, where we know there's a grave, is 671 grave, and that's involving the base, Benoit Air Base. That's up here in the northeast corner. You can barely see it, but just where you see that yellow line go across, a little further out is the actual grave of 670. Above that line is the 101st Airborne Headquarters, and this is the air base, Benoit Air Base, as part of the air base, which you're looking at. I got other pictures that are up here that are better resolution, so you can have those. I found this grave out from a medic who took in the sergeant that was on duty on the east perimeter, picked up the two bodies, our soldiers who died, airmen, and took them to the medic. You know, they were already deceased. And he said to me, he said, I remember the medic telling me, he said, Bobby says, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. And he said, treat these as heroes. That's the last he saw them. And I never knew this existed until all of a sudden one thing leads to another, and he gets a hold of me in an email about a picture in a magazine, traveling band down south in the Phoenix area. And in there, the member of the band posted a picture. In the picture, you could see, for us who are familiar with them, you could see where the grave is of 670. And it's right off the berm facing the air base where I can see the tower that I was in the night of 10. So we know this is a legitimate picture. And again, we triangulation, everything else we use, so that's how we nailed that grave down. And that grave, 90% of it is covered with homes. But the government has already banned the sale to another owner. So the government will take over that land and then they'll excavate. Now when that's going to be, that's up to them. But at least they know. But what they don't know is just who is there. So that's part of the DNA process. They were supposed to collect DNA samples from the citizens, their family members, so when they get to this point of a grave and they find remains, they have something to compare with. We don't get involved with that. The good thing out of this is we get information after it's published that a grave has been found in the ceremony, such as the one at Benoit, where it was attended by 1,500. This is the one that got me started. When you see them in the process of these 80, the procession leads to, or it starts out with the provincial people, the government and military out of Hanoi, about 3 people each from each group. Then the province, same thing with the provincial people. And then the honor guard carrying the casket, and then the family member. One family member. And one family member, they all carry the picture of the loved one in front of them like this as they're walking down, and you see this woman in the video, and you can see the tears running down her face. You can see the tears. I stopped the video, and I could see the tears, just more of them, just getting ready to dump. Really, it was unbelievable. But when you see that, it just hits you. And that's what convinced me that, I already knew there was more out there to be found. We haven't even touched them yet. But, with Vietnam saying they lost at least 300,000 or 400,000 soldiers, I knew I had a good chance of finding graves somewhere. And that's why I did it. Was to watch that woman come down with tears in her eyes. Because the only thing she has is this picture. That's the only communication she's had in the last 49 years, is this picture. That is it. She's heard nothing. Vietnam missing, got a piece of paper about 5 by 6, 5 by 7, I think. Looks like parchment paper, unless it's just old, typical paper. But in any event, all it is died in Dong Nai province. There's other information there, but died in Dong Nai province. That's like saying he died in Burlington County. Really, when you really begin to look at the map of some of these places where these provinces are, but that's what it says. It doesn't say the Ben Mai Air Base. It doesn't say that at all. It's not mentioned. Just the province and the date he died, as well as other information. The other thing we collect is helmets, or hats as they call them. We've turned over 3 of them so far. And what they do is the Vietnamese, the NBA soldiers will engrave inside the rim of the hat their name, their enlistment date, and any type of symbol. Like one put in there a medical symbol. We didn't know what it was. It was a Chinese symbol. After the hat got back to Vietnam, they found the same person's name listed 7 times as an enlistee on the same date. And the only thing different was the symbol in this hat indicated a medic. They went back to the 7 names and researched each one of them, and they found the one that had the medical training. So that helmet went back to the family. And there's a video, I'm not sure if it's in this group or not, but there is a video. Oh, it's in a link. I gave the link. The short link I gave it?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. That shows that you should be able to get that. I want, who's ever here with their email, if they want it, they can have it. But in that link, it'll show you the family receiving the helmet at the house. And there had to be at least 80 people outside the house. And the way the Vietnamese homes are set up, they have their front area is somewhat very open, and the house is more like behind it. The personal area is behind it. And but that front area was loaded with about 80 people, the grandmother, the uncle, and the grandmother's sister are the surviving members of that family. But you can see in that video, after our engineer Thong takes it, puts it up on the altar, then eventually the grandmother looks at it, takes it off the altar, and holds it to her chest. And you can imagine what she's thinking. She's thinking about the person as she last saw him in that helmet. That's what it is. So all this is about reconciliation is what it is. They call me Uncle Bob. And I said, why do they call me Uncle Bob? Because of gray hair? What is it? What's the deal? I'm asking the engineer this. He says, no. And he started it. He says, no, that's because we respect you, we honor you, and we appreciate everything you do, and you're part of our family. So when I go somewhere, it's always Uncle Bob. I mean, they introduce me by name, but after a while, after a few minutes, it's Uncle Bob. When they want to come up and talk, it's Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob doesn't understand Vietnamese. So I always have an interpreter there. Anyway, any questions so far? Okay, yes.
Have you ever found any U.S. MIAs or any relics while you're
Well, thank you for the question. That's very good, because I skipped over that. The MIAs, yes. We get information from the Vietnamese after a grave excavation has been published, especially a large one, because that spreads out throughout the country. We'll get word from a civilian or a former VC or a former NBA soldier. And we have gotten information on 10 MIAs from these people. One soldier gave us information on 5 of those 10. And here were helicopter pilots and crew members all trying to get to the first helicopter that went down. All 3 helicopters were shot down. All 5 were killed. And the coordinates were given because of where the soldier that gave me the information, where they took the bodies to, or where they had them march to, and killed two of the first two. That's where the other three ended up, at the base of the cliff. So again, the exact coordinates. So when I gave the information to the DPAA, I have one contact. I give him all the facts he needs that I've collected that makes sense. We review it, and he enters it into the system, and then they set a plan to take care of when they're going to schedule them. Each June, they schedule for the next 18 months. If you any were involved with MIA families, Gold Star families, this is how they find out when their loved one is going to be searched for again. This is this process. It goes out 18 months. And they don't insert anything new in between. That schedule stays the same because the manpower they use is like 16 teams go out and do the search for these individuals. And they don't want to disrupt their schedule for the next 18 months. They want to try to lock that down as best they can. Now, granted, somebody out of 16 people and you're over there for 3 months, somebody's got to go home for some reason. And that always happens. That they can tolerate. But they can't be inserting other possible graves without any facts, more facts, something substantial, something you can hold in your hand maybe. Well, the first pilot, I went with my family down to Washington and went to the wall for the first time in 2021. Before I went down, I took the names of the people that I was in high school with, and there was a plaque there at the school, at the high school, Monsignor Bonner over in Provincial Hill. And not all of them died in Vietnam. They died during the Vietnam era. A couple of them died in Guam, one in Japan. But in any event, I copied down all their names and went to the wall and found all the ones that died and deceased in Vietnam, including the two that we lost. And I paid my respects to them. Every time I go back to Benoit, I've been back 3 times now. Every time I go back to Benoit, there's a picture, you'll see it again on the lake where you see me in a blue shirt. I'm inside the bunker that you saw a group of people standing around. That's Bunker Hill 10, as we called it, in the video that you just saw. That's where our CO died. And I was in the middle of, we weren't supposed to have cameras. This is an active military base still today. Base commander is standing out there waiting for us to come out of this thing, out of the bunker. And I noticed him to turn around and look. He made some noise behind me. Here's the engineer that we're talking about, and he's got a camera. He's filming me. Put that hand camera away. He comes up here and sees the camera. We're all going to jail. So anyway, he puts it away. But I make it a point to go there every time I'm on the base, and it's not an open base. You have to get clearance. That's the other thing. Let me go back to Washington. Go to the wall. And I paid my respect for everybody, and now I'm walking back along the wall, and I see what I thought was not there before, but I see a collage of photos leaning up against the wall. So I walk up to it, and I look at it, and I'm bending down looking at it. I figured this isn't working too well. So I took it away from the wall, and I put my foot down on the spot right where I took it from, so I didn't misplace it. And here, this is the pilot that died in a crash after a bomb run. One of 2 that he was supposed to make. He didn't make the second one, but as we did more research. And he died on December 7th, 1966. He was from Benoit Air Base. So I said to myself, boy, if I'm ever asked to look for MIA, this guy I'm going for first. And he was. So when it came time it was a coincidence. DOD calls me probably 3 or 4 months later, said, Bob, with all the success you're having, we just want to help find MIAs. I said, hell yeah. I was waiting for you to call. Anyway, so one thing led to another. We did the research, just like I somewhat explained before. We go back and get photos of the area. Give me the photo that they have on file for the MIA, for this one particular one. We did that. I told Thang, I said, go back to the same source on the satellite image, and I said, get the day before the battle, and get the day before the crash and the day after the crash, as close as you can get to that. It's okay. Within a month and a half, getting back, I got what we wanted. Take a look at it. They sent me the email. I see the first photo that they used, the aerial reconnaissance flight. and you can plainly see the crash. In that same photo to the right, or east of it, is a cloud. Okay, there's nothing else there that we can see other than the point of impact. He says, now look at the second one. He sent me a second email. He's playing with me, is what he's doing. So he knows I'm going to be excited. So anyway, so I go to the second email, and sure enough, here's the second email without the cloud because it was taken the following day. The satellites travel the same pattern every 24 hours. This particular satellite, I can't speak for all, but this one. And that's how he was able to pick up the following day of the crash. In that, you can see plainly directly east of the crash point were what we call scratch marks. That's the debris from the aircraft. That basically he hit on an angle and the rest of the material went out. We saw those scratch marks in the photo. They went out there, like I said, they don't insert anything. But they went out there anyway, 6 months later. And they didn't find any other evidence yet, but they've been out there 3 other times since. So it tells me that they are sure these pieces will be found. So that's how we got to that one. But that's how we do it. It takes time. Nothing happens in one day. Nothing so far has happened in one day. It just takes every time. For example, the grave up here you can barely see it, but right where you see the letter G up there, that's a grave that we knew after the battle in '68 that there had to be a grave up there. Everyone knows a rumor that there was a grave up there. Finally, I find the security policeman, just like me, he's working a smaller tower on the bomb dump. That's what you see where that arrow is, where it says the word grave up there at the top. That area there, that's our bomb dump. And he's on the north end of that. And he said, Bobby says it was right across the road. And again, give him the same photo. Tell me out. All you gotta do is mark it. Send it back to me. Mark. And they went up there about 3 months later, and they found evidence of a grave. So that's another one they have to excavate. That's part of the 1600 that died that day. So, any questions? Yes.
First of all, my commendation to you for what you're doing. It has to be very simultaneously traumatic and rewarding at the same time.
It is.
People sometimes ask me why at 83 I'm still doing intelligence work I started in Vietnam, and I can relate to it. It's the same kind of passion and feeling that we owe it to do it to people. Do you find first of all, 2 questions. Are the Vietnamese somewhat fascinated by the fact that we're so concerned about finding all of our people?
They're shocked.
Huh?
They're shocked. They
Yes,
didn't expect us to be doing
how
this.
cultures view an individual human life
Yes.
between Western cultures and every other culture in the world, whether it be Oriental, Asia, Mid-Eastern or whatever, is so different, and Westerners don't understand that. And the second question I had, do you find a difference in the cooperation you get from the government of the United States in doing this over the years?
Yes, I do. Including being able to talk to privately.
Which ones do you find more cooperative, if I could ask?
DOD,
Yeah.
Institute of Peace.
I tended to still being active in intel. The initial reaction from the Johnson administration was they wanted to pretend that all this didn't happen so they would stop it. I would imagine the Nixon administration was a bit more friendly, and then as things has evolved, you've gotten a little more cooperation over the years.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the main and the facilitator that made all that happen, really, it's not us looking for the graves. What enabled us to do it, the enabling process was with Ted Osas, who was the ambassador to Vietnam, had started the reconciliation effort.
Yeah.
That's what got the ball rolling. And then Bob Connor and company come in under the rug, so to speak, looking for graves. So we just sort of filtered to the top only because of the connection. And I've spoken many times to Mr. Roses about different things in the book that he wrote. It's a book called Reconciliation. And he made it a point to make sure that we're in the book. It was almost like a quick add-on, but we're in the book for sure, for about a page and a half, 2 pages. But very, very good gentleman, very, very professional in what he does and how he does it. He now leads Southeast Asia Business Council for all the countries in Southeast Asia. He's a U.S. rep for that.
When you go back now, it shouldn't be surprising to us, because think about how we get along with the Germans and the Japanese now compared to World War II, and the Russians, for example, and the Chinese. So it shouldn't be surprising. But it really is, the difference in atmosphere and things like that is entirely different.
It is. And I've met several times at the ambassador's request, Vietnamese ambassador's request, to come to his office and brief him on something. Bob, what do you know? He said, well, I can't tell you everything I know.
That sounds like me. Bob, what do you know? I can't tell you nearly everything
Right.
I know.
I can't tell about the conversation I have with that from the DOD or anything like that. But I will tell you this though. It's a little side issue, but it's a little pet peeve. Is the you wonder how can they detect bodies? Okay, Vietnam has a tradition of not using ground penetrating radar. For those who are familiar with it, it's like the curse that they don't want to use. And I finally wrote to one of the senior members of the ambassadors group that I just met on another subject in Washington, asking him for help to get these people to take a GPR out there with them. Because the MIA group takes one every single time. And if it's not rated, if it's not there on the field, it's in the truck parked on the street while they're searching for other stuff. But a GPR is there. They don't use it. So what is coming up in the future at some point, this has been going on for about 3 or 4 years now. And I had the idea, what happens to a body when it decomposes? They're not in caskets. They're laid in there the way they were found on the field. It's ugly, it's horrible. For the young people, it can be sickening. But in any event, sickening for vets that have done it. But in any event, when the body deteriorates, there's 5 chemical elements that it disseminates in the ground after the body starts its process. And that is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, iron, and zinc. If the bodies had to be burned because they came across the bodies 2 or 3 days later, the body's been out in the sun, they have to burn them for health reasons. Then they bury them. If that's the case, the grave with burned bodies in it, it's calcium is the other product, the 6th ingredient. These ingredients do not bubble up in the soil, they stay right with the grave elements itself. And as the graves shrink, they shrink too, but they're always there. And back when I looked at this about 3 years ago, I said, well, which country that's not Vietnam could have been in the same situation in the time of the Bosnia-Herzegovina battles that were going in, and all the mass graves that they had. I figured, let me get a hold of a Czech engineering school and see if they have anything. I soon gave up on it because when I dialed in and called them, all they had was a Czech directory. I don't speak Czech.
Forget about that one.
So the other place I had in mind was a facility in the south that I'm very familiar with. I don't want to give out all of that where it's being developed at, but the bottom line is I ended up talking to the professor, and the professor was explaining part of the process, but not all of it, for obvious reasons. It's funded by the government. That's why she can't comment on it. But I said, if you just put this thing on an iPhone, mount it on a drone, you should be able to find it in 15 minutes instead of us spending 5 years finding the grave. And she says, you want to come down here and earn the rest of your degree? My doctorate degree? I said, no, I got more than that to get first. But anyway, we had a good laugh out of it, but I don't want to expose who it is. But the facility has a history to it, and that's why they're doing this work. But anyway, that's the bottom line. That's what we're trying to get to, is that device, get it out. And I've asked the DOD, they asked who I talked to. And yes, I spoke to Mr. Kelly McGee, I'll give you that name. And I asked him, I said, when this thing is finished, this isn't a private setting. There's only him, me, and his wife. We were at the invitation of the ambassador for a dinner, a celebration. Their Independence Day is what it was. But I finally figured out the right time and the right place in the room where he's segregated from the rest of the room, and walked up to him. He was still eating, by the way. I made sure I got my food hanging down, but he was still eating, him and his wife. But then I walked up to him and I said, I got to ask you something. With the device that's being developed at this particular location, I said, what's the chance when it's finished and you do your beta testing, you do your alpha testing at the college, but do your beta testing in Vietnam? Bring it to Vietnam. I can show you a grave, you can sample it, test it over a grave where we know there's bodies, remains in those graves right here. And you can cover a football field in 30 minutes, if not an hour, and find every single grave that could be out there, theoretically.
So these cameras can actually, from above, look down into the ground?
It's sensing. It's like radar sensors.
Oh, okay.
Like a sonar.
Wow.
Picture that.
I
And
see.
basically, as that information's coloring up, and that's where we had the laugh with the professor. I said, you can color code them any way you want. I said, everything is going to be, if it's a high acid ground, the surface, ground area, so to speak, well, that's going to be a different color other than what you programmed it as. You're looking for these 5 or 6 elements. You should be able to, if that's the only reason that you're getting that is because there's a grave there. Does that help you out?
That definitely has to
People are getting a sense, I hope, of how sophisticated and how good, and at least at this point, it's the best in the world, our surveillance systems are. Kathy, you remember when we were sitting over at the museum doing our work, I said to you, anybody, we can find out where anybody is, anywhere, at any time, if we choose to. Which we used to talk about stories, well, we don't know what this is going on, and what was my reply? Bullshit, we know everything.
Yes.
Our intel, thank goodness, is still the best in the world, and it's unbelievably sophisticated, and this is from a person who's simply middle level. You know, there are things that I'm not privileged to know. It is just unbelievably fantastic and also scary what our surveillance capabilities are. As I used to tell you, anywhere, anytime, anybody.
One more thing, and this will take you up to speed and up to the current, what we're doing. I asked the Institute of Peace, and I also asked the Vietnamese ambassador in a separate conversation about the possibility of meeting with some of his aides and discuss a particular project, how we can find the graves in an easier way because of the veterans are dying off quickly. And you're reaching a point where the spike is going to rapidly rise, if not already. And they said, yeah, okay. So I contacted the Institute of Peace. I said, this is what I want to do. And that is get the Catholic Church involved. Those who are familiar with the history of Vietnam know full well that the history of the Catholic Church in Vietnam is really not good back before the war. And during the war, it even worse because the Diem regime, he's Catholic, and he encouraged all the Catholics to move out of the north into the south, influenced the vote that never took place. So when the North Vietnamese had the manpower and the means to do it, they attacked, came across the DMZ and got themselves into Hue, which was heavily Catholic populated, and killed just about every priest they could find, as well as any Catholic they could find, because they didn't want a vote to come up against their favor. So those are facts. So what I asked was, I already knew that the relationship is tolerable. There's no problems per se. It's tolerable. So we had a battle at the Tet, and the battle from our fence line went east over to Long Binh, which is no more than 4 miles away. Just above Long Binh is a town called Hue Net. In there is a large Catholic church. I spoke to a gentleman in the 47th Infantry, 2nd Battalion, and he said that, we don't know who buried these bodies. We helped out the 199th and got them out of a jam, got them out of there. They were trapped in the cemetery. Well, you're all familiar with cemeteries, what they look like. The stones, that's where the VC were hiding. So anytime you move from one stone to the other 2 or 3 guys can pick you up. That's why they got trapped in there. One reason why they did. But the 47th one is told me that where they were in relation to the church and the church's cemetery and the road that was adjacent to where all this activity was going on. So I pieced together one other aspect was a Catholic nun, and I've seen a photo of it, and I'm trying to find it again. A photo of the Catholic nun bent over putting a white cloth on a VC's face. All you can see of the VC are the legs. But that's what was in we know that for a fact, that was in the road. Because there were several bodies in the road further down on it with other photos. But in any event, what I did is I asked them, I said, well, can we meet with them? And eventually they came back and said, yes, they want to meet. They want to meet with you down in DC at a restaurant, not in the office. Okay, all right. I felt like it was something out of The Sopranos. Put these guys in the back corner, because that's where they had us. As I said, I didn't really want, I was talking to the head waitress, I said, we don't really want to be the focal point of the restaurant. Can you put us in the back? She said, yeah, I can do that. So anyway, so that's where we were. And now I've already written to these 3, and I've written to the Institute of Peace, rep, he's there, 3 reps from the ambassador's office, covering both the political and the government end of the rules, so to speak. And the idea is we want to go up to the Catholic Church, knock on the door and say, can you help us, help Vietnam find the mass graves? Here it is, your citizens and or the children of the citizens could very well be aware of where a grave is. And only the family knows about it, no one else. I said, it's those people we're trying to get. And I said, it behooves you to hopefully say yes to the suggestion of doing this, because it makes Vietnam all one. You just don't take the eraser and take out that line between North and South Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh wanted one. This is a selling point. Not that I'm a communist believer, but this is a selling point from the standpoint. This is what he wanted. He wanted one Vietnam. Well, it doesn't mean you just take an eraser and erase that line. The citizens of Vietnam have their own perception of what the North was like, and they still carry that perception way back in their mind. Some of it may have filtered down to the children. Who knows? I really don't know that. But this is an opportunity to just reinforce that idea of all one Vietnam. Let the church ask the membership at the end of Mass, if anyone knows of a grave, to come forward and notify us, give us your name, etc., and we will have someone contact. The Americans will have someone contact you, and that is the plan, and they approved that. So now I'm waiting for the letter that I wrote to the Pope. I don't hold back. So even though I got the approval from the Vietnamese government, it's okay. I still want it approved from the top down to the archbishops. Those are the guys that are going to be controlling it all. So that's in the process, and that's mainly because of the veterans are basically at the age of dying off. Can't help it. It happens. But this is one way of recovering some of it, and that's in the plans right now.
I have a question. In nursing school, we were taught to honor, when someone passed, the culture or the religious acts that would go along with their death. Now, when you're exhuming multiple pieces of people, are you collecting the elements to be with them, or just
we're collecting fragments of bone
and
or sandals?
Okay.
Anything that we can find that they find that relates to one soldier.
One person.
Okay. So they meticulously, you saw them maybe in the video of their fingers pulling the stuff out. Right. And really what you see, if you were to take the grave and just what you would see basically, if they cut through it up to the point of finding the remains in the grave, 6 feet under, 7, whatever it is, you're going to see a black line going across the dirt. That's what they're picking at and into to get. Now sometimes they're in the middle of it, but that's what they're picking up. And all that is separated for each individual soldier as they know it at that time. Now in some cases, they may be picking up bones from another soldier. Right. Won't know that till they do the DNA.
DNA testing.
Right. Yeah. If Vietnam collected the DNA from both families. So there's a big if there. Because I don't pull any punches with them even when I'm with them in the meetings that we go to for this last trip. The guy at the head of the table is the guy in charge of the entire province. He's almost like the president, but I mean he's not. That's his role though. He's over the whole thing. Right? And I tell him every single one we went to, all 5 of them, you know, the families are waiting for you to exit. They're waiting for you. I'm pointing at him. They're waiting for you to set it up and get it done. You've been told everything. We've given you everything. But you gotta find them. You gotta get them up. So it's a polite push to don't sit on your hands after we've given you this. But yes.
I can't even imagine how hard it is for a Vietnam veteran to try to, come forward as a witness to pinpoint and try to help find these graves. Do you offer like private, conversations, or like how would a veteran, if they wanted to do that, do that?
When we're trying to make contact with them, we're talking to most likely the history rep for that unit in some cases, or the individual soldier. It's like in this room here, is that we never give out the name of the soldier providing the information to anybody, unless Vietnam wants that individual back in respect for what he contributed to in finding this grave, whatever it is. And even that, I ask for his permission. If he wants to go, they want you back. If you want to go, and they pay the expense. There's your flight. That's a $3,000 ticket. Your hotel they pay for, and food and transportation to and from. So they cover all that. They appreciate, and they want to show their appreciation. I can guarantee you, if you're there for a week, you'll be exhausted with receiving all their appreciation and emotion. You'll be exhausted. That's when you saw in the video that one person put the blue shirt I was wearing, and the sweat was still pouring down. That's when they called me at 9:30 at night and said, "Hey, we need to do the interview. They need you up here right away." This is after we got up at 4 o'clock in the morning and been in the sun all day. Anyway, that's life. Any other questions? Yes.
What did Vietnam soldiers do with our soldiers back then when they buried them or their bodies?
Say it again.
Like, what did Vietnam soldiers do to our soldiers' bodies after a battle?
In most cases, we've won the battle.
Okay.
And I think any vet would tell you we won them all. But there's some there that we didn't. When the Army goes out on patrol, they look for, if the VC were out there ahead of them, and the U.S. Army comes up behind them a month later, a year later, whatever, and they find evidence of a grave, the Army will dig that grave up to make sure it's not an American. Because they have buried them. Now it's a matter of finding them. Some of them buried them for their own personal gain by getting a free ticket back to the United States. I've been given the family's letter that they get from the DPAA detailing the history of the searches that they've done. And this individual that gave it to me, I used to work for. The individual that's missing is his roommate from college. And so what I look for is I can follow that path. This one person reburied that body 3 times. Buried it at the accident, at the crash site, moved it again to another area away from the crash site, so no one could find it except him. These are in the mountains, by the way, and they go into the mountains to get the wood out that they want, the special wood. It's very artistic, and they can do a lot of good things with it. But anyway, that's what this guy was doing. He finds the crash, he finds the body, he buries it to protect it. That's why he's doing it. My thought is, after he's done this, now we come along, now he's buried it in the 3rd place, and he lives around Hanoi, and the area is bombed right near his house. Well, where the bombs hit was where he buried the guy. So he's not there. You'll never find him. It's now a pond. That much I know. But the reality of it is I want to be able to walk up to him, knock on the door, and convince him at some point he has to have still in his possession personal items. Or politely ask them, I'd like to have the material to take back to the family. No different than the hat that we give back to the Vietnamese. Because the MIA family is waiting just like they were waiting.
Are they
And at least
cooperative?
it's something they can hold on to and remember their father, their uncle, whoever this person is. So that case is still open. And either I go back on my own expense or I go on theirs, but I am going to go to that house. The rule is, though, with the DPA, with what they have set up with the company, I can't accept it. There has to be a representative there from Hanoi who's associated with the DPA. That's what I would have to line up first. It's not that I can't do it. I have to have him there to receive it.
He mentioned something, a snippet to keep in mind. He talked about the battles. We won almost every battle in that war. We won the war, but the press made it seem like we didn't for their particular political reasons. Now, luckily, half a century later, Americans are a little bit more sophisticated about what their press is, and they understand that. Back then, most people didn't understand that they were being fed a load of political bullshit by the press. Now they understand it. You younger people are much more lucky than we were. We had to learn it. You can just know it.
If you have questions, I do have photos here. Real quick, I'll go through these. These are handouts you can take with you if you want. This, the veterans know about this place, but they don't know what it is looking at it. This is the old Army cemetery. I've been told, by two different Army groups, one involving the battle at the racetrack battle, took place on Tet, and the other one that took west of Long Bin, up off of 316 in Tanep, but those bodies were both brought down here. And the only open area is over here on this right side today. I've got satellite images that show this area completely bare, nothing in it. This picture was taken by an Air Force serviceman just this past May. This is what he got, but he got it in color. I'm trying to save him on coloring. This sucked up about three containers of black ink for this one. Anyway, you're welcome to take it. This one here, again, you can take this one as well. This is a little different, but it points out the battle at around Point A. Doesn't give you numbers as far as those who died there, but in this case, around the Point A area, we anticipate about 200 are buried in mixed graves. And the church that we've been talking about just recently, that's St. Martin's. That's in this area, just where you see the arrow in the center of the page. There's two arrows coming down, but the one in the center of the page. That church is right in that area, and that's where we're going to be searching pretty soon. The other over here is a grave of 900 supposedly. That grave they did work down here, and they moved that grave. Where they put it is the point we don't know, but they moved that grave for modifications that they were doing in the area. But they know what we're looking for. And another area that we did look at, there's another, this is an outpost down here, Army outpost. They told me that there was a grave between outpost 1 and 2. We went there this last trip, and we couldn't find the area that they were referring to, but we physically went there. And we also spoke to a Buddhist monk who basically, it's an all Buddhist area, and we asked him to, this is what we're looking for, and he was very helpful as well. This one here is the last one as far as the handouts that I have, other than the business cards up here. This is the Ben Nye Air Base, and you're looking at the runways run east and west, basically. A little bit of an angle, but just call it east and west. The graves are marked, including the one we can't find, which is this one in this area. It's not marked. I didn't mark this one yet. Okay. There is another grave just outside the perimeter road. You see the tip of this arrow here. I thought there was somebody standing there. Right here. There's a probable grave right here. And it's right in this area. And the research, again, talked to a guy from the 101st, who I didn't know beforehand. He said, when I came around here on patrol the night after the Tet battle, I walked across and sunk in the dirt. I said, well, you just walked in the grave. They don't come around and, make it nice and smooth. You just walk over the grave. So we're trying to convince the Vietnamese to get to this area. Now there's houses. What you don't see is there's homes all in this area now, right up to where you see this perimeter. This is the perimeter road right here on the east side. And it loops around here. The first grave is up here that we found. The one with 670 is up here to the right in the corner by the 101st. This is the 101st in the upper right hand corner. And this one is, like I said, it's all homes through here, and there's a wall instead of fence. And we've asked them, you've got to get out there and search. I can't give you any more information. This is it. This is from a witness now. It's not me assuming it. It's what we've assumed for the last 5 or 6 years. But this is an actual fact of information.
So they buried them right away, like as soon as what they could. Not like
we did, yes, but we had to wait. Not we meaning me.
Yeah.
But it was buried the day after. In other words, that first grave couldn't be dug on the day the battle ended. The battle started at 2:30 in the morning. It ended at 3 o'clock the following afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, it ended as far as the base is concerned. But the battles continue going into the east.
Mm-hmm.
But there are snipers out here in between the two. And that's why I told my CO, it's not the wisest thing to be doing is standing at the highest point looking for a grave.
Yeah.
I said it has to be down on that turn. That's what it tells me. But no, we buried them as fast as we could.
Right.
Meaning the people that did the actual burial.
Right.
They did it on. That's why I put it in the post on or about February 2nd,
Mm-hmm.
because the battle occurred the morning of the 31st of January, and that left all day. Was basically a cleanup of some sorts on the base, predominantly at the aircraft area.
Yeah.
But the burials commenced some point after that.
Wow.
But they bury them pretty quick. They don't want them hanging out. The odor is horrible.
Oh yeah. I can believe it.
I mean, our
You got
huts
thousands.
were all the way down here, and the wind constantly either blows east 5 months or it blows west 5 months. It just depends on time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's pretty consistent in those two directions. And believe me, it was traveled down here rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Why did it take so long?
Pardon me?
When did we first go back to Vietnam? 25 years later?
Me, myself?
No.
Oh.
To find the graves. We knew how many people were missing.
Well, as far as I know, we were the only ones looking for Vietnamese.
I just can't imagine. Like, I don't call them Vietnamese. They're North Vietnamese.
Right.
I can't imagine the red tape or the money it costs to let somebody do that. Because they're money people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I just can't imagine. And you had cadaver dogs too, right?
We had. Well, the MIA Commission may be using cadaver dogs. I haven't seen any cadaver dogs in any photos. That doesn't mean it didn't have them. Just it's not in any photos that I saw.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime they've been to a place.
I just can't imagine them cooperating.
Well, they do cooperate. They do. Trust me. There's enough pressure on them to
Well, there's
cooperate.
something in it for them.
Pardon?
There's something in it for them.
Not really. I mean, the Army guys are getting paid every day, just like anybody else would get paid. And my point would be, if I was that friendly with them and they could handle my comment, I'd say, you're already paying these guys to sit on our hands. Look, get them out. They're going to haul them. I wouldn't say that.
And I don't know that for sure.
I didn't record that, did you?
I don't know that for sure. I was told. Like, I'm told everything.
Okay.
Don't believe nothing you hear, only half of what you see.
Well, in general, you could say that about any point in the war, about anything. From what I've seen, those people are generally appreciating what we're doing. It is no joke. When I walk into a room that's filled with 30, 40 people in there, it's Uncle Bob. They know who I am. They know what I'm with.
That's an honor to be called about.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
Monsoon didn't help you a little bit, did it?
Pardon me?
monsoon season didn't help you guys a little bit.
No, no. Well, they don't search. And there's too many floods in Vietnam. They've had flood. Hanoi was flooded in the last couple of weeks.
Just like you run into Jane Fonda.
I don't know about Jane Fonda. I don't deal with Jane Fonda and offer anything. I hate even seeing a picture of her before or after. Anything else?
Thanks for doing this, man. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Again, if you know of any veteran that could be familiar with the grave in the process, or you're familiar with it, I have business cards here. You can take one, give me a call, email me, whatever you want to do. Again, I don't give out the names until they ask for you to come back if you want to come back. So, anybody here from fought in Mole City or Frontier City? Okay.
Thank you so much, Bob. We
Thank you. I
sincerely
appreciate you coming out and listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And